Hey guys, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040, bringing to you the first part of the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover, which is going to be part of the Crisis review series. And today I'm going to be talking about part 1 of the Crisis, which is episode 9 of Supergirl. Now, going all the way back to season 1 of The Flash, and going all the way back to the Elseworlds crossover event at the end of part 3, there has been a lot of teases and a lot of hints that the CW are going to do Crisis on Infinite Earths as the Arrowverse's big crossover event. Now, me and one of my friends, we talked about this for a number of years. How are they going to pull this off? Can it work? And how many heroes can they cram into such a big event? Now, for many people who know what Crisis on Infinite Earths is all about, it was a graphic novel that came out in 1985, which was all about the multiverse being in jeopardy and being wiped out by the Anti-Monitor. So what we saw in this graphic novel was a number of heroes from all around different Earths. So it was like different versions of Superman, there was different versions of Wonder Woman, there was all sorts of different versions of heroes all coming together to stop the entire multiverse from being wiped out of existence. So I was very, very curious and very interested to see how the CW was going to pull off such a monumental event. Now, towards the end of the Elseworlds crossover, Oliver Queen made some sort of mysterious deal with the Monitor. We never knew what it was, we never found out what it was, but it wasn't until the end of season 7 of Arrow that the Monitor confirmed that he's seen the future, and in the future he has seen Oliver Queen die. Now, this ties into the announcement that was made by Stephen Amell that season 8 would be the final season of Arrow. So what we've been seeing in season 8 of Arrow, we've been seeing Oliver Queen go on this secret mission for the Monitor on various different Earths and trying to basically prepare him for the upcoming battle to save the multiverse. And as I've said in my Arrow review series, season 8 of Arrow has done a fantastic job building up the Crisis, and each episode has done a phenomenal job, and I've enjoyed every single one of them. And the same thing with The Flash. At the end of episode 1 of season 6, the Monitor told Barry that on the day he will have to answer the call and make the ultimate sacrifice, and in order to save billions of lives, the Flash must die. Now, that revelation doesn't really come as much of a big surprise, especially as Barry made the ultimate sacrifice in the graphic novel. So what we've been seeing throughout season 6 of The Flash is Barry has been trying to learn how to prepare himself to die, and in the second episode of The Flash, we saw Barry Allen meet with Jay Garrick to see firsthand how exactly this event unfolds, and what he saw was all of his friends and all of the entire Earth and multiple Earths get wiped out of existence, as well as seeing himself wipe out of existence. So what we've been seeing with season 8 of Arrow and season 6 of The Flash is both shows basically building up and preparing for this massive crossover event. Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow and Batwoman, not so much, but we do know that they will be part of the crossover event, and they will indeed be playing a big part. Black Lightning, although it's never actually been stated that he's part of the Arrowverse, he too will also be part of this event, and he will indeed be mixing up with all of the Arrowverse characters, and he will have a role of his own to play as well. So, when it was also announced that the Crisis event will be 5 parts, me and my friends said to each other that this is a really cool idea. 5 parts is great, and There is more than enough time to tell the story. There is more than enough time to make sure that every hero gets ample screen time. And also, there are going to be a number of actors and actresses from old superhero TV shows going all the way back to like the late 80s, all throughout the 90s, who are also going to be playing some sort of role in this crossover event. So there's been a lot of expectation, and expectations are very, very high. I don't think I can ever recall a crossover event that has had more anticipation than this one, because as we all know, Crisis on Infinite Earths is not only the biggest crossover event, but it is also considered to be the biggest game changer in the history of DC Comics. So how this is going to play out in the Arrowverse is going to be very, very interesting. So with that all said, let's talk about Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1, Episode 9 of Supergirl. So we kick off Part 1 when we hear the voice of Marnovu talking about the multiverse being formed, and in the beginning that there was a single black infitude, and all these different Earths consisting of all these heroes, and that the age of heroes has begun, and then the crisis is upon us. And you can clearly see that in this crossover the budget is quite high, and I knew from the word go that this was not going to be your typical crossover that we've been used to seeing in the past. This felt like a really, really big deal, and in many ways, to me, it felt like I was watching the opening of a movie at the cinema. It definitely had more of a cinematic feel to it than the past crossovers, and I knew that this was going to be one hell of a ride, but boy oh boy, was I not prepared for what was to come. So the first thing we see is Earth 89 in Gotham City, and we get a shot of Gotham City from the first Batman movie. And one thing I did notice, that when the skies turned red, it kind of reminded me of how Gotham City looked in the new Batman adventures of Season 4 from Batman the Animated Series. And with the Batman score played by Danny Elfman, it really brought all the good memories of the Tim Burton movies, and it was really cool to see this shot of Gotham City once again after more than 30 years. And the next shot we see is a newspaper article saying Batman has captured the Joker. Now this scene has confused me and my friend, and we've talked about this a few times, and the one thing that has confused us both is that how could the Joker still be alive? Because at the end of the first Batman movie, Joker fell from the top of the church to his death, and we never saw the Joker in the Tim Burton Batman movies ever again, nor was he ever mentioned. So the only thing I could probably say is it could be another guy who has become the Joker. Maybe someone else has taken over from him. Who knows really, but that little Easter egg there was cool, but at the same time very, very confusing. And the person reading the newspaper article is none other than reporter Alexander Knox. Now this is the first time we've seen Alexander Knox since Batman 89, because he was not in Batman Returns. He was never mentioned, he was never referenced, or nobody ever said what he was up to. He just never saw him again, and this was a really cool shot to see Robert Wall back as Alexander Knox. He doesn't look any different to how he looked in 89. I mean, obviously he's a lot older, but he still looks pretty damn good for his age, and we see him looking up at the sky and he sees the bat signal and he says, "Oh, I hope you're watching, big guy." And then we see Earth 89 is wiped out by antimatter. So although it was only a very short cameo, it was really cool to see Alexander Knox back, and Robert Wall looked like he hadn't missed a beat. And even though it was very, very brief, it was really nice to see the Tim Burton Batman movies get acknowledged again, because in my opinion they're absolute classics, and with good reason. We then get a shot of Earth 9 in San Francisco, and the big surprise of this first part is we get to see Jason Todd from Titans. Now, there was a rumour going around that we might see the Titans in the crossover, but when I saw Jason Todd, I absolutely geeked out. And then we got to see a shot of Hawk, also from Titans. So it was really cool to see that two members of the Titans team actually make a cameo in this crossover event. I was kind of hoping that they would actually interact with the Arrowverse characters, but just to see these guys, was good enough for me. We then see Gotham City in Earth 66, and we hear the classic Batman theme played, and we see Burt Ward as Dick Grayson walking his dog in Gotham City. Now, I was a little bit sad because, Adam West is sadly no longer with us, because I do believe that had he not passed away, he would have definitely been in this crossover for sure. But it was nice to see Burt Ward expressing all of that witty, holy cow, sort of attitude that we all remember from the Batman 60s TV show. And even though it was really cool to see Burt Ward back in this environment doing what he does best, I was a little bit disappointed. Not because of Burt Ward, he did a fantastic job in the time that he had, but I was hoping that his Dick Grayson was going to have a much bigger role, because when it was announced that Burt Ward was going to be appearing in this Crisis crossover event, it was quite obvious to me and my friend that he was going to be Dick Grayson, but they said that he was going to have a very undisclosed role, and they didn't say what kind of role he was going to play. Me and my friend thought that maybe he was going to play Dick Grayson, maybe he would have a scene with Kate Kane or one of the other Arrowverse characters, maybe give some advice or maybe mentor one of them, who knows, but he didn't really get to do anything, and we was a little bit disappointed. It was kind of funny that his Dick Grayson was wearing a red sweater with a green, yellow, black V-necked shape around his shirt, so it's kind of like a nod to his Robin. And I have to say, I thought Burt Ward might have tried to get himself in a little bit of shape, but if this clearly was the only scene he was going to do, then I understand and respect why he didn't. But it was a lot of fun to see Burt Ward back in the role of Dick Grayson one more time, and to hear him say "Holy Crimson Skies of Death," was a nice shout out to something his character would have said back in the 60s. And that was the last shot we see of Dick Grayson 66 before his Earth is wiped out by antimatter. So far, at the beginning of this crossover, we've seen Alexander Knox, we've seen Jason Todd, we've seen Hawk, and we've seen Dick Grayson from the 60s. So we're off to a great start already, and so far it was really, really good, and the ride's not over yet. There was more surprises yet to come, and I have to say, so far, Part 1 has been off to a tremendous, strong start, and the best part about it is it's far from over. We're just getting warmed up. Shortly after, we're taken to Earth 38, which is of course Supergirl's world, and we learn that they've been experiencing a number of global earthquakes and realise that danger is heading towards them, but it's coming from outside of Earth rather than in. Now, whenever you have a situation where the world is going to end, you always got to have that one dopey guy walking around with a big cardboard cutout saying, "The end is nigh," or "The end of the world is upon us." So it was kind of funny that even in the events of a crisis, no pun intended, you always got to have that one silly guy running around. So shortly after Supergirl has dealt with the earthquake, which turned out to be nothing more than a crazy dragon flying around, Supergirl and the DEO realise that a wave of antimatter is wiping out multiple Earths, and that Argo City is the next target. Kara, realising that Lois and Clark are on Argo City with her Kryptonian mother Allura, and realising that they could be in serious danger. Now, for those of you who remember, at the end of Elseworlds, Lois learned that she was pregnant, and Clark, along with Lois, left to go live on Argo City. So since then, Supergirl has been the sole protector of her Earth, while Clark and Lois go to have their baby, who is named Jonathan. So, as we see, the skies turn red and Kara, through a hologram portal, with a little bit of help from Brainiac 5, warns them that they have to evacuate the planet at once. So this creates a very unique situation, and there is a very touching scene where we see Lois and Clark put Jonathan in the spaceship, and it's very reminiscent of the iconic scene from the first Superman movie back in '78 with Marlon Brando and Susanna York, where we see his Jor-El give that iconic speech about the son becomes the father becomes the son. So it was really cool to see Lois and Clark recreate that moment in this sort of situation. So that moment gave me a lot of chills, and it was really cool to see that crossover give a nice shout out to the classic Superman movies. And we see Jonathan's pod shoot off into outer space, and back on Earth 38, Kara and the entire DEO look on in sheer horror as the entire Argo is destroyed by antimatter and the signature disappears. You know, it's one thing to watch people die, but to watch your entire world be wiped out of existence is quite scary. So you can imagine how Kara must feel having to sit there and just watch her entire world disappear before her very eyes. Because remember, when she was just a kid, she was shot off from Krypton, so she never actually saw Krypton be destroyed. She was trapped in the Phantom Zone, so it must be absolutely traumatizing for Supergirl to see not only her whole world be wiped out, but her whole family is on that planet as well. So it's quite a sad situation for someone like Supergirl to just stand there and not be able to do anything. We then see Lila Michaels, now revealed as the Harbinger. Now, back in season 8 of Arrow, Lila Michaels was revealed to be the Harbinger and was actually working in secret with the Monitor to bring together all different heroes in preparation for the upcoming crisis. So we see the Harbinger in her full blue uniform going around different parts of the city and all different Earths trying to pick up all the different heroes. And one of the first heroes she picks up is the Flash, and Flash is not surprised to see Lila as the Harbinger. In fact, he almost acts like he's expecting it, and he says to Lila that it's here, isn't it? The crisis has begun. I'm ready. So it was really cool to see Barry, because, you know, we know Barry's a fun guy, he's a cool guy, but I like even in the face of danger, he throws all that out the window and gets his serious head on. He says, right, let's do this. We then see Ray Palmer and Sarah Lance, two members of the Legends, at a bar playing quiz night. This is kind of, unfortunately, the sort of silly things we're used to seeing from the Legends. So when the Harbinger arrives, it's like, oh, okay, Lila, I'm digging the blue suit, and she quickly teleports them out of the room. And we also get a shot of Lila in Gotham City, where we see Kate Kane in her Batwoman costume going around pounding the crap out of Alice's Rabbit Gang. Now, during the course of Batwoman's show, she's been engaged in a game of cat and mouse, so to speak, with her sister Beth, aka Alice. So, just when it looks like she's close to getting a lead on Alice, we see the Harbinger appear. Now, you got to remember, Kate's just become Batwoman, so she's not really used to seeing weird things like this, and the idea of multiple Earths being in danger is a bit far-fetched for her. So we see Lila say to Kate that the multiverse needs your help, and she goes, the multi what? I'm a bit busy at the moment. And I like how she just teleports Batwoman without even giving her a chance to ask questions. So before we know it, we see Lila along with the Green Arrow, his daughter Mia, Batwoman, Superman and Lois teleported into the DEO, where Lois says that if it was not for her, we wouldn't be here right now, and it's revealed that they were saved at the request of the Monitor. We also learn in this scene that Kara's mother, Allura, did not make it, so it is official that Argo has been completely wiped out by the wave of antimatter. Poor Kara. I really feel for her in this scene, I really do. So, but at least she's got her cousin Clark to comfort her. Another thing I noticed with this scene, when all of the heroes were teleported into the DEO, I noticed that the music, budget-wise, was a lot higher than normal, because I've got nothing against the music that they use in the Arrowverse shows. They're okay, but I felt that the music in Crisis, especially in this scene in particular, was quite strong, and at times it had a very cinematic feel to it, so you could really see that these guys have really pulled out all the stops to make this quite possibly the strongest crossover to date, and it really shows. So when they were teleported, it sounded more like do 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 do. So I was sitting there thinking, wow, okay, this isn't your typical crossover. This is big. This is legit. Woo! And me being the film music buff that I am, just hearing even just little chords like that really gave me chills up my spine and my goosebumps on my arms. So that was a really cool moment. And it's quite funny, you see Batwoman being all stubborn. It's like, what am I doing here? Why am I even here in the first place? And because she's not used to seeing this, and Supergirl says, look, they're my friends, we're all on the same side, you know, I trust them with my life. And I thought there was one little issue of discontinuity here. Batwoman says, well, I know you, but I don't know them. Hello? Don't you remember Elseworlds Part 2? You came in, took down Oliver, took down Barry all by yourself, and helped the guys out during that fiasco in Arkham. I mean, that little bit of discontinuity did rub me up the wrong way. I mean, it wasn't a big deal, but how could you ignore that? So that kind of annoyed me a little bit, but I let it slide. It was only that one little bit, but apart from that, it was okay. And Batwoman standing there saying, well, I might as well introduce myself, and she takes off her cowl to reveal her face, and she says, my name's Kate. And so that was quite a funny scene, but it's quite funny that Batwoman acts so stubborn, very similar to Batman, but I don't even think Batman would act as bad as that. I think Batman will just probably stand there and say, yeah, whatever, I'm used to seeing weird stuff all the time. We then see Lila sitting with all of the heroes, explaining to them about what the antimatter is, and they are tasked with protecting a quantum tower in National City, a structure which can hold off the crisis, and it may be their only hope. So I have to say, seeing all of the heroes sitting there at the table in full costume, I couldn't help but get Justice League vibes, because, you know, ever since the Arrowverse became the thing that it is now, every time I see these guys all together in the same room interacting with each other, it always gives me chills, because I'm such a hardcore comic book geek at heart, and the Justice League is one of my all-time favourite superhero teams, if not my all-time favourite. And even though we don't have Batman and Wonder Woman all in the same room, and the Green Lantern as well, among other heroes, just seeing these guys sitting together, talking, just is amazing. It really is. So we see that Kara says, well, look, together I know we can beat this. And Lila explains to the heroes that the Monitor has requested that the final battle take place here on Earth 38 to make your final stand. And there's that one line Oliver says that really gives me goosebumps. He says, well, in that case then, we are clearly going to need a much bigger team. And obviously hearing that line, I was like, wow, here we go, boys and girls, this is it, this is what we've been waiting for. So just the way Oliver executed that line was just sheer badass. And Oliver says, well, we're going to need as many guys as we can. Where's Barry? Where's the legends? And the next thing we see is Barry and Ray and Sarah are teleported into the DEO, and we see an explosion outside. And that scene there is just epic. Just all of the heroes standing up there looking, thinking, alright, this is clearly serious. And we also learn in this scene that baby Jonathan has somehow ended up on Earth 16 in 2046. Sarah, Brainiac 5 and Lois agree to go and get him back, and Superman says, well, I'm going with you. And there's a awesome shot of Oliver and Clark talking to each other, because I only seen their interactions on the DCAU, so to see Green Arrow and Superman live action engaging with each other, it just made the geekness in me just go up to like over 9,000 plus. And Oliver says, look, I know he's your son, I'm talking as a father here, but we need you here, they'll be okay. And Superman of course reluctantly agrees, so that was a cool moment to see that. The heroes are then given a task to protect the Quantum Tower in National City. Now this structure, from what we're told, is able to hold off the anti-wave matter, but only for as long as it can, so it is up to all of the heroes to do everything they can to stop the antimatter wave from hitting Earth 38. So we then go to Earth 16, where Lois, Sarah Lance and Brainiac 5 have located baby Jonathan, and they find a much older Oliver Queen of that Earth living there in hiding. Now, the last time we saw an older Oliver Queen was back in Legends of Tomorrow Season 1, and he had just one arm. But here we see Oliver Queen has both of his arms. Now, I think it would have been really cool if we saw Oliver Queen again with one arm, because I think it's pretty cool that even though he's got one arm and he's got like this cybernetic mechanical arm on the other side, it makes him look really, really cool. And we learn that on Oliver's Earth, his Sarah, who went on the Gambit boat with him, lost her life and died. So that is the reason why Earth 16's Oliver is a completely broken down man who has lost all hope and the will to continue. And Sarah explains to Earth 16's Oliver that on my Earth, you're a good man and you're a father and you have a beautiful daughter. And as far as I'm concerned, you're a good man in whatever Earth you're on. So I thought that was a very touching scene. And we also learned that Oliver found baby Jonathan and was protecting him, though it was assumed that he had kidnapped the baby. It's not really the Green Arrow style, so it's good to see that no matter on what Earth you meet Oliver Queen, barring Earth X, Oliver Queen is a hero through and through. So this was a really touching scene, and it was nice that Sarah Lance and Oliver had one more moment together, even in the event of the crisis. So this was a very touching scene. We also see Jean is appealing to all of the aliens on their Earth to use their ships to help evacuate the humans to Earth 1 in the event that the heroes are unable to defend the tower. We then see Alex pleading with Lena to help build the tech they need to carry all of the humans through to the multiverse to safety. Lena reluctantly agrees to help, but only because their world is about to come to an end. Now, we know that Lena and Alex have had their differences before, mainly because of Lena learning the truth about Supergirl's secret identity, but it's really good to see that even in the face of such a events like the crisis, it's good that everyone's put their differences aside to do the right thing. So this was a really, really cool scene, and it does really feel like it truly is the end of the world. So that was a lot of fun to see that, and I'm really glad that even though Lena's still kind of a villain, she still wants to preserve life, and she's not completely evil like Lex Luthor. So this was great to see that side of her, and I always wondered what kind of role Lena Luthor was going to play in the Crisis events, and we really get to see her play a big part, even though she's only in like, I think maybe 2 or 3 scenes. Those scenes are really important, and they really help play a big part in the overall story, in my opinion. We then get a nice moment between Mia and Oliver, where Oliver presents his daughter with her own Green Arrow suit. So we've been hearing the stories, and it has been confirmed that we are going to be getting a Green Arrow and Canary's spin-off show. So this is kind of nice to see the seed planted for that show very early on by giving Mia Smoke her own costume, so to speak. And I think it's really cool that in a big battle of the multiverse, that Green Arrow's own daughter gets her own costume. So it really feels like a true passing of the torch between father to daughter. So I'm really glad we got that here, because I was wondering, if Oliver Queen is supposed to die, how does Mia become the hero she's supposed to be? So it's really good that we actually got to see that here. Oliver and Barry then talk about how they're going to combat the Crisis, and Oliver is shocked to learn that Barry has told him that the Monitor has said that he is the one who's going to die in the Crisis, and Oliver confronts the Monitor about their deal that they made at the end of Elseworlds, and the Monitor explains that I did agree to keep our bargain that Barry and Kara would be spared in the Elseworlds, but however, guys, this is something new, this is something bigger than all of us can even begin to imagine. So I think what the Monitor is saying, that the deal they made at the end of Elseworlds was to save Barry and Kara in the Elseworlds event, not the Crisis. So things are starting to become more and more clear here. Shortly after, the heroes arrive to protect the tower, and they are overwhelmed by a massive army of shadow demons. Now, these shadow demons are very similar to the parademons, but they're more like, how shall I put it, like Black Lantern ghosts. So they're more like ghosts than actual monstrous demons. So we see all of the heroes all standing together, fighting everyone. We even see Batwoman get into the thick of things. Now remember, Kate Kane has very little experience in dealing with these sort of situations, so it was really cool that she's getting to stand side by side with all of these great heroes from the Arrowverse. And in many ways, seeing all these guys fighting together in such a big moment brought back lots of flashes of the Justice League. I mean, look at this shot here. I mean, how cool is it? We see Flash, Superman, Supergirl, Batwoman, and the Atom all in one scene together, fighting off against all of these shadow demons. It was a lot of fun, and this is probably my favourite moments of part one, just seeing all of these guys working together and trying to save the entire world. And we even got to see Mia and Oliver fight side by side. So we then begin to see the tower beginning to fail, and the Monitor arrives and starts teleporting each and every one of the heroes back to Earth 1 so they can regroup. But Oliver, being Oliver, refuses to stop fighting and wants to give more of the people extra time so they can evacuate. And the Monitor then asks him, Oliver, it's time. And Oliver screams, has the planet been evacuated? And the Monitor says, not completely. Then Oliver says, then it's not time yet. And then the next thing we see is Oliver shoots an arrow at the Monitor to prevent him from being teleported. And then we see Oliver in full badass mode run into battle without any arrows and taking on all of the shadow demons by himself. And I have to say, this is one of Stephen Amell's finest performance yet, and you can really see him getting manhandled and getting hit everywhere, and even started bleeding at one point, and it was a really epic scene. And this is probably one of my favourite moments in the Crisis, and it's definitely up there with seeing all of the heroes working together and fighting side by side with each other. And as this is all going on, we see all of the ships from Earth 38 head into the portal, and we see all of the skies turn red, and we see Earth 38 is completely wiped out by antimatter. We then see the Monitor bring Oliver to Earth 1, where we see all of the heroes have arrived there safely and all of the billions of lives of Earth 38 have been evacuated also. The Monitor also tells him that this was not supposed to happen. This was not the way I envisioned Oliver's fate. This is not how he was supposed to die. But each and every final heroic act, 3 billion people were evacuated to Earth 1 and were saved. And Oliver sacrificed in making sure that everybody was safe. So Oliver went out like a hero. And we see Oliver say his goodbyes to everybody. Barry, Kara, Sarah, Mia, and he says that I did this for you, Barry, I did this for you, Kara, to make sure that you're safe. And as Oliver is dying, we see Nash Wells in a gold and green uniform declaring that he is now a pariah and is punished for releasing the Anti-Monitor, and he is forced to watch as the Anti-Monitor causes destruction all around the multiverse. So the final shot we see is Oliver dies in front of everyone, with everyone around him, and that's how it ends. And I have to say, what an amazing first part of Crisis on Infinite Earths. I was very concerned how they were going to pull this off, but boy oh boy, did they do a fantastic job. Everybody brought their A game. It was absolutely epic, to say the least. And Oliver dying in part 1 did catch me off guard. I wasn't really expecting it to happen very, very early on, but I'm sure we'll learn more about why this has happened as we go along here. So, with that all said, I'm going to leave this here for you guys. What did you think of part 1 of The Crisis? Did you think it lived up to expectations? Was there anything you weren't happy about? Was there anything you would like to have seen? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will be back next time to talk about Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 2 in Batwoman. So till then, take care everybody.